Hi, my name is Eugenia, and you clicked on this video because I thought of some silly title saying my testimony, or being reborn, or born again Christian, parentheses, funny, not funny, I don't know. But suffice to say, this is me, and this is my channel, Wonders Never Ceasing, and I have been a Christian for just a little over a year, and it's changed my life in so many fundamental and wild and beautiful ways that I have been burning to share this for a while, but I wanted to do it properly and not just immediately take to YouTube. Trying to get some learning under my belt. Certainly, I'm approaching my 1 year anniversary of going to church in June of this year, and I became a member in November, and I got baptized in November. But all of this started back in April of 2024, and I wrote a version of my testimony. This is my phone. It's like, this is my testimony. Oh, what is that? No. I wrote it up to share with some folks at church because there's just this random person. Just getting to know people, and fellow Christians really enjoy testimony stories. So, and I thought, well, I'll write it up, and this is just a little snippet, but I think it's important, and I wanted to share it, and I just wanted to read my writing because I meander when I speak, and I get lost over all sorts of rocky terrain, and so I didn't want this first video, my introduction, to be meandering, even though it kind of already is. So, hello, hi, let's get into this. This is my testimony. Part 1. I was not looking for God. On a Saturday afternoon in April 2024, I was alone in the apartment meditating. I had taken up meditation in October 2023 as some kind of respite for the mental agony I was in on a daily basis. I was over an hour into this particular meditation, healing my energy centers, moving around my chakras, all with the intention of rewiring my neural networks and fixing my broken self. I had gotten to the top of my head, and then something unexpected happened. Before embarking on these long meditations, I would always review the material vis-a-vis what would happen during them, so I could pick the right one. And so, and know what I was getting myself into. So I was surprised when my guru's voice, Joe Dispenza, I was doing Becoming Supernatural, which is also kind of funny, but so I was surprised when my guru's voice unexpectedly released me into the cosmos, into the great unknown outside of my head. I had on an eye mask and giant headphones, and I was sitting in bed with a weighted blanket on top of me, blind and deaf, in a trance, and now fully out of my comfort zone, floating aimlessly in the vast expanse of the universe. The guru's voice prompted, "Find the intelligent love." Jesus Christ appeared with such immediacy and with such force in my mind. It wasn't like an image of Christ, and it wasn't like an amalgam of religious residue that I had conjured up. It was intense. It was intense. And I'm gonna stray from the reading because I just need to really emphasize how this wasn't a picture in my brain that I thought of. It was like being struck with such a force, and people have asked me, well, what did Jesus, how did he look in your mind? And I can tell you this, that it's not as simple as an image, and it's not as fleeting as a feeling. It was an intense, magnificent force, and there's no other way for me to describe it. And it was a knowing that it was Jesus. So I've gone off script, but that's okay. So yeah, he was so fully outside of my mind, and yet inside of my mind I was entirely overcome. I burst into tears. That I was sort of kind of a wailing sob as I write. The cry of a baby freshly born. If I could remember my own birth, that radical change from inside to outside, and the cry of life that comes so naturally to us all, that unites all of us. You've cried these tears, and perhaps with that thought, you can begin to imagine the state that I was in. But I think I've sort of described, I was totally overwhelmed. And so the guru's voice arrived in my ears a second time, and he said, ask for what you need. And I was just crying and sobbing, and I said out loud, I know I look totally insane. No one was there, great. And I said, take my suffering. Take my suffering. And I felt like I was disintegrating. And I kind of was, which is good. So then the writing continues, and I quote from Jonah chapter 2. I called out to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. Jonah. Everyone loves Jonah. This is where it gets kind of funny, because after that you'd think, well, no. After crying a lot and writing in my journal about Jesus appearing in my brain, my life was basically the same for the next few weeks. I was anxious and annoyed most of the time, because that was normal, and anticipating a visit from my parents. Because I was having car trouble, I was going to have to either figure out some complicated way to see them or stay with them. But be with them for the entire week without access to the intricate framework of routine that I had built around my daily life, which is namely weighing and measuring my food and myself, playing the game of existence by numbers and flesh. I could grab with my fingers. That's what I wrote. So yes, I struggled immensely with eating disorder, especially it occurred earlier in my life, probably 20 years ago or more. And it was really bad these last few years. Suffice to say, we'll get into that later. But that's what was going on just a little over a year ago. So I planned and readied myself as best I could to visit my parents, and I was there having dinner with them. And I felt overcome with this desire to express gratitude and love towards them. Because we've always been close, but we're not great with feelings. And love is a scarce resource when you aren't in Christ, which is true. So everything that wasn't intellectual either felt transactional or saccharine. So I told them that I loved them and I was grateful for everything that they've done for me, and that nothing mattered except that we spend time together and that we love one another, which is very out of character for me. So we were crying and hugging and tears all around. And my father, who, when I was in college, I didn't really know this, but he had a transformation for himself because my parents started going to church. And I thought, I'm going off book here, but I need to include this. I thought that they were just lonely. And I remember thinking, oh, it would have been nice if they had maybe taken us to church when I was a kid, but they didn't. And now I'm far too old and too smart to ever believe in that. So, okay, good for them. And then I was a little worried because I was like, are they going to tell me that I can't do whatever I want? And it turns out they started going to a Presbyterian church. And so my dad started telling me about, Reformed theology, and he's very intellectual. And so a lot of the conversation would kind of end on doctrine-y things, which was good in the sense that it caused me this great sigh of relief. Like, oh, the doctrine of predestination. So it's either like a thing where you're in it or you're not in it. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh. So if I'm in it, then I know. But if I'm not, then it's just kind of like, eh. And he was like, well, kind of. And I was like, oh, well, I guess, eh. And that's kind of how we were. And he would tell me always to go to this specific church here where I live in Savannah, Georgia, to the Independent Presbyterian Church. And I remember he would always sort of bring it up in like a tinkling way, maybe on a Saturday if we were on the phone. He'd be like, you could walk down to IPC. And I remember thinking, why would I do that? Why? That doesn't make any sense, Dad. I don't have anything in common with those people. I think they would probably think I was weird. I have like tons of strange tattoos. And we're certainly going off book here, but I think this is an important thing to include, and that I don't get into in this testimony version. And so he would tell me to do this, and I said, So it still blows my mind that not only do I go to IPC, I'm a member, I sing in the choir, I love it, it's incredible, and everyone there, we can get into that in videos. This is what I'm talking about, of meandering. I need to rein myself in, because we need to finish to get to this part, which is mind-blowing. So we're crying and hugging. I've told my parents that I love them, and then my dad he gets up, and then I'm sort of thinking, okay, where is he going? But then he comes back and he has the Bible. And I remember thinking, oh, the Bible. I wonder why he has that. What is he going to do with it? And without explanation, my dad started reading Psalm 23. This is the KJV version. And I'm going to read it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will the Lord keeps me humble. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's so beautiful. And I'll read you the little conclusion. Something happened in my brain. It felt like I had never heard these words before. Like I had never, in fact, heard any words before. Like I was hearing something really real for the first time. But that didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. Nothing made any sense. I just know that my entire life shifted in that moment. Or really, it was in that moment that I can pinpoint. It's really when I can pinpoint the change from death to life. It felt like my brain was being electrocuted with love. A kind of love I had never experienced, a tangible one, something altogether new and different was happening to me. And I've dropped acid. I wrote that. Just wanted everyone at church to know I dropped acid in college. I dropped acid. I've had altered forms of functioning, various drug-addled states. But this was the Bible. This was the Bible. And that's kind of where I conclude, which is pretty lazy of me, honestly. Because that's the very beginning. That's the very, very beginning. And it was this very overwhelming sense of, I can't even describe it, like being really birthed into reality for the first time, into a place and space where there was truth, and where there was life, and where there was light, where I could see and I could understand things that previously I were obscured. That's the easiest way for me to describe it. I, spent a long time in school. I studied literary and cultural studies. I did Marxist cultural theory, and I was really into literary theory and deconstruction in particular, Jacques Derrida. This is important just because I want to say that I had spent so long thinking and arguing and writing tons of papers. Very easy once you get the hang of it, because the conclusion was always that we're just afraid and scared because we don't want to admit that nothing means anything. Fundamentally, nothing means anything, because if everything is subjective, if there is no sacred truth, if there is nothing to hang the universe on that is in and of itself true and good and pure, we have nothing. We have nothing. And that's pretty awful. That's really, it's just, the shift for me, and this is the very special thing about Christianity that I think I didn't know, is that it's fundamentally supernatural. That something, the Spirit changes you. You are changed. I did not decide. I didn't wake up thinking like, I'm just gonna try Christianity, or having my father read Psalm 23 to me, being like, actually, going to church sounds nice. It was this, I don't know, I can't even describe. I had a drive. I was like, I have to get a Bible now. I need to figure this out. I need to go to church. And not only that, I remember I'm going to include this little providential story, and we'll wrap up here because there's so many stories I could tell, but I want to save those for other videos. But when I first went to church in June, I went with the guy I was dating at the time, who was also living with at the time. And I remember when that, yeah. So the Lord was kind to me, and he showed me things in due time. So it wasn't all at once, like, but anyway. So I remember thinking, I gotta be there on time. It starts at 10:30. Starts at 10. Doesn't start at 10:30. But so get there at 10:30, and it's already started. And I remember thinking like, and there's stairs going up, and I was going up the stairs, and right in front of me was this gal named Sarah, this young woman, and she got to the top of the stairs, and I got to the top of the stairs, and I wasn't even sure if you could go up the stairs. And I remember thinking like, is it okay that we're up here? And she was like, oh yeah, it's fine. They'll just seat us, when they're done with the prayer, with singing. And I was like, okay. And so we sat with her, and afterwards we met, talked with her and met her roommates, and just met people, and she was super kind. We exchanged numbers, and she invited me to a Bible study on Wednesdays. And I remember thinking like, Bible study? That seems kind of weird. I don't really know about, because I was still pretty early into all of this. But then I was like, yeah, I'll go to the Bible study. That seems pretty dorky and weird. I didn't say that, but that's kind of, I was still in that sort of, Bible study? I don't know. I was still kind of like loosey-goosey in my, the universe and the thingy. And I got to Bible study, and it was just so providential that I met Sarah that day, and that she invited me to Bible study. And then at Bible study, I was meeting all these people, who were at the church that had all these strange connections to my life, which is a very bizarre one, where I started versus where I ended up, and then having these overlapping threads at the Bible study. It was not only that, but it was also when the teaching was going on, I was gripped. It's like, this is the Bible? It's amazing. And I can't tell you how beautiful it is to have scripture mean something. And I'm going to wrap up here because I could just continue forever, but I'm not. I got to stop. But if you've watched it thus far, hello. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, because that's the thing that you do. So if you want to see more videos, I have a burning desire to talk about Jesus, and to honestly just riff and talk about my testimony, my experience, but not only that, just general things, and to hopefully inspire you. If you've clicked on this video and you saw me and you started watching and then you kept watching, there's a reason, okay? There's a reason. And if you're not a Christian and you think I'm silly, don't watch my videos. Yes, watch my videos, but you can. It doesn't matter. Of course, you are welcome to watch my videos. I hope you continue to watch my videos, even if you're not a Christian, because we might just catch you. No, that's okay. Sorry. All to say is that I'm very, very on fire and just so excited. I've been watching a lot of other people on YouTube, and they've been so inspiring to me. Gavin Ortlund being one in particular, who his zeal for revival has been overwhelmingly influential in part of the reason why I'm making these videos now and making this channel. This is certainly not my first YouTube channel. I had an old one that was vlogs I made in college, and I'm leaving it up, but it's never amounted to much. So all to say that I hope that if you are clicking on things about Christianity, I really think get a Bible, go to a biblical church. I go to the Independent Presbyterian Church here in Savannah, Georgia, and it's a wonderful place. And it's funny because Independent Presbyterian doesn't really make sense, but it's a good biblical church, and it's changed my life to such a degree that there is nothing that can compare, or that I can. So with that being said, if you're watching videos about Christianity, maybe get a Bible. Maybe if there's a Christian, maybe ask if you go to church, or just keep following the thread. And I hope that you enjoyed this, and let me know. I'm going to go more into my personal situation and how the Lord has been very, very kind and gracious to me and throughout all of the tumult of the last year or so, and how he is just so kind and so faithful, and all so I need to end this video. But I hope that you subscribe, and that you like, and that you watch all the videos that I make forever. Not forever, but from now until whenever I stop making them. Alrighty. I will, and I guess just say if there's something you're like, what about this thing? Just write that in the comments. Obviously, be nice. Or you don't have, do whatever. And yeah, and have a very, very lovely day, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.